When the lie my sister told about having cancer finally came apart, she tried to tear my life down with it. I revealed her deception and watched everything she built crumble. After pretending to be sick just to sabotage my dream of getting into a top 10 university, her entire world collapsed once the truth came out. 2 years later, she stood outside my door in tears, asking if there was any chance we could ever be sisters again. My sister was willing to destroy everything, even herself, just to feel superior to me. Growing up, I constantly tried to be close to Emily, my older sister. I copied her style, buying clothes that matched hers, and whenever she picked up a new hobby, I followed right behind. But instead of seeing me as a companion, she began treating me like a rival. Whenever she came home with an award from dancing, running, or any other activity, I was always the first person she showed it to. She would shove it in my face and say, "I bet you couldn't do this, right?" Instead of feeling jealous or upset, I would hug her tightly and tell her how proud I was. That reaction only made her angrier. She would shove me away so hard that sometimes I fell to the floor. Still, I kept trying until my 14th birthday. That day, my parents surprised me with a pink, glittery bike, one Emily had always wanted. Excited, I rushed to her room and knocked on the door. I asked if she wanted to be the first one to ride it. I took her to the backyard and showed it to her. She smiled and said yes, but insisted on riding it on the road. Since she was 17, I trusted that she could handle it responsibly. Instead of getting on the bike, she looked straight at me and threw it into the street, where a truck crushed it in seconds. In that moment, my childhood shattered along with my heart. I promised myself I would never again share my achievements, or any part of my life, with her. When I was 15, Emily still lived at home and overheard our parents talking about my second-place finish at the regional cross-country championships. Surprisingly, instead of getting angry, she asked if she could attend the award ceremony. I truly believed she was trying to repair our relationship, so I agreed without hesitation. On the day of the ceremony, the coach began announcing winners from last place to first. Just before he called my name, Emily suddenly collapsed onto the floor. Everyone turned toward my family in panic, asking if she was okay. Only when the sound of ambulance sirens filled the air did she slowly open her eyes and say, "Oh, sorry everyone. I didn't eat enough today." People laughed nervously and expressed relief. I just rolled my eyes. From that point on, I started hiding everything from my parents, from Emily, from my entire family. Life became lonelier, and it was painful not to share good news with the people who were supposed to support me. Then, at 17, I was accepted into one of the top 10 universities in the country. My parents found the acceptance letter before I could tell them myself. When I walked through the door, my mother hugged me and said, "We are so proud of you." They immediately started taking photos of me holding the letter, posting them online. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to enjoy the moment. I convinced myself there was no way Emily could ruin this. I was wrong. The next morning, my parents burst into my room, stuffing my belongings into black garbage bags. My father was crying, and my mother's voice shook as she told me, "Your sister has been diagnosed with stage 2 ovarian cancer. She needs one room for her things and another to sleep in." I knew instantly she was lying. I just needed proof. Later that day, Emily came home smiling. It was strange. Just months earlier, she had posted photos with her hair flowing in the wind, yet now she was completely bald. She immediately went to bed, claiming the cancer had drained all her energy. That night, I played along. I cooked her favorite meal, making her feel safe and untouchable. I slept on the couch for 2 weeks, until Emily decided to throw herself a party to celebrate her bravery. She invited girls from my class and nearly everyone we knew. Perfect. Halfway through the party, I tapped my fork against my glass. Instantly, Emily launched into a speech I had heard her practice dozens of times in the bathroom mirror. "Emily, why don't you say a few words? We're incredibly proud of you." I stepped toward her and wrapped my arms around her while she was still pretending to cry. As I pulled back, I quietly lifted the bald cap off her head. Long blonde hair spilled down to her waist. Emily screamed. My mother gasped so violently I thought her lungs might collapse. While everyone stood frozen, trying to understand what they were seeing, I turned the TV volume all the way up. A video began to play, one I had secretly recorded of Emily practicing her emotional speech in front of the bathroom mirror, completely unaware she was being filmed. She exploded with rage, stormed out of the house, jumped in her car, and drove away, once again refusing to face the truth. I let my parents handle saying goodbye to the guests while I quietly went upstairs to my room. The next morning, I woke up to my mother slapping me across the face. My cheek burned as I stared at her and asked calmly, "How could you humiliate Emily like that while she's fighting cancer?" According to my mother, Emily had already spun a new story. She claimed I had ripped out her hair extensions, explaining that she had spent thousands on ultra-realistic ones so people wouldn't pity her for being bald. She even said she avoided mentioning the cost, so no one would think she was bragging about money. Shockingly, my parents believed her. They were convinced I had cruelly exposed their sick daughter's medical secret. That Friday, I walked home with a strange lightness in my step, unaware of what waited for me. When I entered my room, my heart dropped. Every single recording device was gone. My drawers were empty. The space beneath my desk showed clean outlines in the dust where recorders had once been. The storage box in my closet was bare. Even the backup USB drives hidden inside an old shoe had vanished. Emily sat on the couch with her legs tucked beneath her, lazily flipping through a celebrity gossip magazine, as if nothing had happened. When I asked her about my devices, she didn't even look up. She claimed she had no idea what I was talking about, her voice perfectly innocent, too perfect like she had rehearsed it. Thankfully, my cloud backups were still intact, but I no longer trusted anything. That night, I changed every password I owned and activated two-factor authentication across all my accounts. I even created fake accounts filled with false evidence as decoys. As my fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, I layered protection upon protection, new security questions, password managers, and clues only I could answer. References to books Emily had never read, places she had never been. Saturday morning, Helen arrived, looking deeply concerned, carrying a casserole. Her silver hair was freshly styled, and she wore her pearl necklace, the one reserved for special occasions. She hugged Emily and praised her courage, saying her performance was as convincing as any acting she'd ever seen. Emily went on dramatically about her treatments and how exhausting everything was, making sure her voice trembled at just the right moments. Watching from the kitchen, I bit my tongue until I tasted metal. The casserole smelled like the comfort food of my childhood, something I felt cut off from. Later, after I had given up my room to Emily, Helen asked to see it so she could help me reorganize. It was a clever excuse, one that raised no suspicion. Once we were alone, I showed her everything on my phone. A detailed timeline of lies, screenshots, recordings, explanations, and cross-reference notes. Her jaw clenched as she listened to Emily's cruel laughter. With every piece of evidence, her expression darkened. When she realized Emily planned to steal my college acceptance letter, she had to sit down on my bed. We spent over an hour reviewing everything. Helen pointed out inconsistencies I had missed. Emily claimed chemotherapy every Monday, yet she was never sick on Tuesdays. All her medical documents shared identical watermark patterns despite supposedly coming from different clinics. The fonts and margins matched perfectly. Even the medical terminology sounded off, like it had been copied from internet searches instead of real records. Helen recognized these details instantly. Years working at a law firm handling medical malpractice cases had trained her eye. She told me she had already spoken with my parents, but we needed to be strategic. If we confronted them too aggressively, they would shut down. When people are emotionally invested in a lie, direct confrontation often backfires, something she had witnessed with her own family. She suggested waiting until dinner, when everyone would be more relaxed. My stomach twisted with anxiety, but I agreed, even though waiting felt unbearable. The afternoon passed with forced normalcy, helping Mom cook, listening to Dad's work stories, pretending nothing had changed. At dinner, Emily gave the performance of her life. She sighed about how treatment had killed her appetite, slowly pushing food around her plate. She cut the chicken into tiny pieces and took exactly 3 small bites. My mother jumped up immediately, offering to make her something else. Dad gently rubbed her shoulder, praising her strength. The room felt suffocating under the weight of fake sympathy. Helen began casually, asking about Emily's treatment plan and which hospital she attended. Her tone was light, almost conversational. Emily responded vaguely. Helen pressed a little further, mentioning she might know an oncologist who could help. She even pulled out her phone as if ready to call right then. Emily dabbed at fake tears, trying to hide the twitch in her eye. She thanked Helen, but insisted her medical team had everything under control. When Helen asked for the oncologist's name so she could send a thank you card, Emily abruptly stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor as she excused herself to the bathroom, walking slowly and leaning against the wall to exaggerate her weakness. While Emily was gone, Helen looked at my parents and asked if they had attended any appointments with her. My mother admitted they hadn't. Emily said she wanted to be independent. She twisted her napkin nervously in her lap. Dad's hands clenched tightly on the table, his knuckles turning white. Helen then showed them my evidence. At first, they turned away, like children refusing to look at something they didn't want to accept. But Helen persisted, calmly and methodically going through every recording and screenshot. She presented it all with precision. When my mother heard Emily laughing about fooling them, her face drained of color. Her hand flew to her mouth. In less than a minute, my father's expression shifted from disbelief to horror to fury. When Emily returned, we were all staring at her. The only sound in the house was the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. She burst into tears, accusing us of ganging up on a cancer patient. When that didn't work, she claimed I had used AI to fake the recordings. As her lies unraveled faster, she escalated, accusing me of drugging her to force those words out of her mouth. It was a house of cards collapsing in real time. Every new excuse contradicted the one before it. My father slowly stood up, the shift in his weight making his chair creak loudly. He looked straight at Emily and asked her a single question, whether she truly had cancer. His voice sounded exactly like it did when I was a child, and he caught me sneaking cookies from the kitchen. Emily tried crying again, but he repeated the same question, calm and unwavering. That's when she finally exploded. She screamed that everyone admired my achievements more than hers, that my stupid college acceptance had stolen all of our parents' attention. Years of resentment poured out of her in one violent rush. She admitted she had lied about everything, but blamed us for making her feel invisible. She claimed I received praise for copying her, even though she had always been the older sister. Her face twisted with long-buried rage. She confessed that the only moment she ever felt powerful was when she destroyed my bike. She even admitted to things I had never suspected, hiding my library books so I'd get fined, spreading humiliating rumors about me at school, deleting my essays from the family computer. My mother collapsed into tears, her sobs so deep they shook her entire body. My father grabbed the edge of the table and sank back into his chair as if his legs could no longer hold him. The wood groaned under his grip. Helen discreetly recorded everything on her phone in case Emily tried to deny the confession later. As I watched my family fall apart, I felt strangely detached, as if I were floating above the scene. In the middle of such chaos, the half-eaten food on the table felt absurd. But Emily wasn't finished. She screamed that I had ruined everything and lunged at me. When my mother stepped between us, Emily's fingernail tore into her arm. Blood trickled down my mother's wrist, and that was when the shock finally shattered. The red drops spread across the white tablecloth like tiny roses. My mother stared at her arm, confused, as if she couldn't process what had happened. My father grabbed Emily and yanked her away. She thrashed and screamed about how much she hated me, how my birth had stolen her life, how every one of my accomplishments had humiliated her. Her voice was raw, animalistic, releasing years of rage in one terrifying outburst. The neighbor's dog began barking, sensing the chaos through the walls. As my father restrained Emily, Helen calmly called 911, her legal training keeping her composed as she explained the situation. The paramedics arrived to treat my mother's injury, but they also took Emily with them, concerned she might harm herself in her uncontrollable state. Her screams echoed down our quiet street as they led her away, blaming me for everything. Porch lights flicked on as neighbors peered through their curtains. After that, the house felt hollow. My mother needed stitches and antibiotics. The doctor assured us the scratches were deep, but would heal without complications. They cleaned and bandaged her arm with gentle efficiency. My father drove her home in silence, the low hum of the engine the only sound in the car. That evening, my parents sat me down to apologize. They admitted the cancer story had shocked them so deeply that they never questioned it. In trying to protect their sick daughter, they had unknowingly enabled her lies. When my mother mentioned slapping me, she broke down and softly touched my cheek, a tender, remorseful gesture nothing like that morning. I told them everything Emily had done over the years, not to hurt them, but to show them this wasn't new. I told them how the library staff knew me by name, how coffee had become my closest companion. After 3 days of observation, Emily returned home. She was required to attend therapy twice a week. The therapist explained that Emily showed antisocial tendencies and signs of narcissistic personality disorder. She warned us that real progress would take years. She gave us pamphlets about enabling behavior and toxic family dynamics. Emily returned to her old room without ever apologizing. We created invisible boundaries in shared spaces, avoiding each other entirely. When we crossed paths in the hallway, she looked straight through me as if I didn't exist. That was fine by me. I had stopped hoping for a sister years ago. The house felt split into 2 separate worlds under one roof. Still, she tried to sabotage me. One day, I caught her rifling through my college paperwork in my room. She claimed she was just borrowing a pen, but I saw my acceptance letter crushed in her hand. The official seal was permanently wrinkled. My skin crawled at the violation. That night, I installed a lock on my door. My parents understood without explanation and didn't object. They knew that while Emily worked through her issues, boundaries were necessary. My mother even tested the strength of each lock at the hardware store before helping me choose a solid one. The click of that lock became the sound of safety. The months that followed were tense. On good days, Emily helped with dishes and laughed at TV shows, almost seeming normal. On bad days, her anger returned. As the therapist warned us, recovery wasn't linear. We had to balance patience with self-protection. Family dinners felt like strategic maneuvers. I began storing everything important in a safe, my laptop, documents, even sentimental items. Every night they went inside. It felt extreme, but I couldn't risk another attempt at sabotage. That security allowed me to focus on my studies. My birthday, something Emily had always resented, became the combination to the safe. Choosing those numbers felt like reclaiming something. Eventually, the college confirmed my acceptance. The admissions board acknowledged my candor and said they understood the circumstances. They even offered resources for dealing with family trauma. Reading that email made me cry with relief. My future was secure again. When prom season arrived, I let myself feel excited. My friend Ben asked me to go as friends after I found a beautiful dress on sale. Having something normal to look forward to felt healing. I even caught myself humming while doing homework. The joy I thought I had lost was slowly returning. On prom night, as I was doing my makeup, I heard a crash. My dress lay on the floor, soaked in bleach. The blue fabric was ruined, covered in stark white stains. Emily's bathroom door clicked shut down the hall. The sharp chemical smell burned my nose. Standing there in my slip, I felt the excitement drain away. Instead of screaming, I called Nancy. She arrived with her daughter's old prom dress. It was green instead of blue, but it fit perfectly. I tried not to cry as she did my hair, gently pinning each curl. She told me I looked beautiful and meant it, as if she had anticipated my rescue. She even had matching jewelry in her purse. No one cared that my dress wasn't what I had planned. Ben and I danced until our feet hurt. For a few hours, I forgot about Emily and the chaos at home. I just had to be a normal teenager celebrating with friends. Silver streamers and sparkling lights transformed the gym. We replaced stage smiles and family portraits with real ones in dozens of photos. When I got home, Emily was waiting in the living room. Her face darkened when she saw the green dress. She had expected tears. When I smiled and said, "I had an amazing night," she stormed off to her room, clearly disappointed. For once, her attempt to hurt me had failed completely. The following week, Emily's therapist scheduled a family meeting. She explained that Emily had confessed to ruining the dress and several other acts of sabotage. She recommended a more intensive program, possibly residential treatment, so Emily could focus on healing without distractions. The current approach, she said, wasn't working fast enough. My parents were torn. They wanted to help Emily, but were afraid of sending her away. The therapist gently explained that sometimes healing required distance. She handed them brochures, glossy pages filled with promises of recovery, from specialized programs focused on personality disorders, each featuring testimonials from families who had found peace through separation. That evening, I could hear my parents arguing. Dad felt they had failed Emily by not noticing the signs sooner, while Mom insisted the focus should be on the residential program rather than assigning blame. Their voices rose and fell as they went back and forth. I tried to concentrate on my homework with my headphones on, but calculus problems blurred through my tears. Even with music playing, their raised voices cut through. Emily must have heard them too, because the next day she announced she would go to treatment. She said she was exhausted from always feeling angry. For once, she didn't seem to be plotting anything. She looked genuinely drained. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and the fire that once fueled her seemed replaced by something hollow. The following Monday, we drove her to the facility. It was 2 hours away, surrounded by gardens and mountains. The staff seemed firm yet compassionate. They explained that family therapy would happen once a month for at least 9 months. The place felt less like a hospital and more like a retreat. In the parking lot, other families said goodbye, each carrying their own heavy stories. Emily ignored me and hugged our parents goodbye. That was fine. I didn't need a tearful reunion. All I wanted was for her to get help and leave me alone. As we drove away, watching the facility disappear in the rearview mirror, I felt lighter than I had in years. The mountains looked calm, as if they could hold and slowly reshape all the pain our family carried. Without her, the house became quiet. I spread my things out freely and reclaimed my room. During peaceful dinners, my parents and I talked honestly. Mom started asking about my day again, really listening to my answers. Some nights, we played board games and relearned how to function as a family of 3. I threw myself into my senior year. I began tutoring underclassmen in math and joined the yearbook committee. With college secured, I could finally enjoy high school. Nancy threw me a farewell party filled with all my favorite foods. Before I left for school, the treatment center called to arrange a special family session. Emily had something important to say. That Saturday, we drove back. Summer had turned the mountains lush and green, and the building felt less intimidating. Family sat quietly in the gardens, talking in low voices. Emily looked healthier in the session room. Color had returned to her skin, and she had gained some weight. Her hands shook slightly as she read from a piece of paper. It was a genuine apology. She named specific moments and acknowledged how deeply she had hurt me. The dress, the laptop, the bike, everything laid bare. She explained her diagnoses, borderline traits, and narcissistic personality disorder. She made it clear these were explanations, not excuses. She was learning how to regulate her emotions without harming others. As she spoke, the therapist nodded in support. When she finished, we sat in silence. I didn't forgive her. The therapist said that was okay. I thanked Emily for the apology and said, "I hope treatment continues to help you." That was all I could offer. Forgiveness couldn't be rushed or forced. Everyone heals on their own timeline. We went to a nearby cafe afterward. Emily joined us under staff supervision. She ate her soup. We stuck to safe topics, movies, the weather. When she asked about my roommate assignment, I showed her the email. The girl seemed nice. The drive home was quiet. In the front seat, my parents exchanged glances. Mom finally said she was proud of how I handled everything, that I'd shown maturity beyond my years. Dad added that whatever feelings I had were valid. I owed Emily nothing. 2 weeks before leaving for college, I found something unexpected in my desk drawer. a small wrapped box. Inside was a necklace with my birthstone. Emily had ordered it through the treatment center's craft program. The receipt included a note, "For your new beginning." I stared at it for a long time. I packed it, but I didn't wear it. Maybe I would someday, maybe not. Even if I wasn't ready to accept it fully, the gesture mattered. I wrapped it carefully in tissue paper and placed it in my jewelry box. Small steps still counted. Move-in day was chaotic. Dad insisted on carrying everything until his back started hurting. Mom rearranged my dorm room 3 times while my roommate Chloe and her parents watched, amused. By evening, the room felt like home, even if it looked like a store explosion. Saying goodbye was harder than I expected. Mom cried openly in the parking lot. Dad kept checking the tires and clearing his throat. I promised to text every day and call once a week. Nancy's care package arrived before I even finished unpacking. Tea, cookies, and a note saying how proud she was. College lived up to every expectation. Classes were challenging and fascinating. Late-night study sessions ran on pizza. Chloe and Ike bonded over terrible dining hall food and became close friends. I joined the running club and met even more people. For the first time, no one knew my family's drama. I felt free. I missed the first family therapy session, which felt strange. Later, Mom called to update me. Emily was doing well, taking accountability on her own and helping newer residents adjust. The therapist called it meaningful progress. I felt relieved, even from afar. When I came home for Thanksgiving, the house felt calmer, different. My parents had redecorated and started hosting game nights. They seemed lighter, as if they'd finally exhaled after years of tension. Mom cooked enough food for 20 people. Emily was allowed a supervised home visit for dinner. She looked nervous when she arrived. Conversation was slow, careful. She asked genuine questions about my biology major. No competitiveness, no insults. She helped clear the table without being asked. When Mom brought out pie, Emily asked if she could say something. She thanked us for not giving up on her and said she was committed to getting better, even knowing how much pain she'd caused. Dad squeezed her hand. It felt like progress, but she returned to treatment that night. I waved from the porch instead of hugging her. Small steps. Healing wasn't linear, the therapist reminded us, but it was happening. During winter break, Emily transitioned into a structured housing program. She took online classes at a community college and got a part-time job at a bookstore. The routine suited her. In another family session, boundaries were clearly defined. Weekly dinners, occasional visits, but no immediate return home, possibly never. The therapist helped us write everything down. I returned to college cautiously hopeful. My parents visited for Parents' Weekend. Mom took pictures of everything, including my messy dorm room. Dad wore my college sweatshirt everywhere. They looked genuinely happy. Spring semester flew by. I made the dean's list and was invited into the honors program. My parents framed the letter. Nancy sent flowers. Emily even texted congratulations. Every achievement finally felt fully mine. No shadow, no fear. When I went home for spring break, Emily had been visiting regularly. Dinners went smoothly. My parents spoke neutrally when updating me. No exaggeration, no fear. One night, Emily asked about my summer research internship. She seemed sincerely interested and said it sounded impressive. No probing for weaknesses. After dinner, she thanked Mom for cooking and helped with dishes. When she left, my parents looked at me hopefully. I said it was fine, and sometimes fine was enough. Summer brought more stability. I love my research work. My parents visited the lab, trying to understand protein folding. Emily kept working and stayed in therapy. Family dinners became easier with time. One evening, Emily asked if we could talk privately. We sat on the back porch like we used to as kids. She said she couldn't undo the years she'd taken from me, but she wanted to do better moving forward. I told her trust would take time, maybe forever. She said she understood. Before sophomore year, we had one last family session. The therapist said Emily had made real progress. The disorder wouldn't disappear, but she was learning to manage its impact. Everyone had worked hard to get there. Back at college, I felt at home. My family wasn't perfect, but it was healing. Emily sometimes texted about books or songs. I replied when I felt like it. No pressure. We found a rhythm that worked. Sophomore year brought new challenges and opportunities. I declared my major and started research with a professor. My parents called weekly with updates. Emily had her own studio apartment near the bookstore. When I visited during winter break, she cooked dinner. The pasta was overcooked, but no one complained. We exchanged simple Christmas gifts. A gift card from her. A journal from me. Safe choices, but meaningful. Mom took a picture of us on the couch. Not close, not distant, just real. Later, I helped Emily move furniture. We worked quietly with music playing. Over tea, she thanked me for giving her a chance she didn't deserve. She listened as I talked about college without interrupting or comparing. When I mentioned struggling with organic chemistry, she offered help. She'd done well in it herself. We studied together for an hour. She was patient and clear. That night, I told my parents. Mom smiled. Dad reminded me to keep boundaries. I agreed, but maybe slowly those boundaries could change if things stayed healthy. By spring, we had a routine, weekly texts, monthly video calls for studying. She never pushed for more contact than I offered. Little steps, real progress. She didn't feel guilty when I didn't reply for a few days. Instead, she waited until I was ready. It felt important that boundaries were respected. Our relationship had stabilized by the end of my sophomore year. Functional, but not close. We could converse without ulterior motives and share space without conflict. She attended my academic awards ceremony and gave me a sincere clap, just support, no drama or scene. I studied abroad in Spain that summer. Emily gave me travel advice and assisted me with packing. Before everything fell apart, she had spent a semester overseas. Her advice on staying at home and dealing with culture shock worked well. At the airport, we said our goodbyes with hugs. Real, but brief. Mom shed tears of joy. Everyone, including Emily, received postcard from me. She later told me that she had saved them in a box. She wanted to see pictures and hear stories when I returned. She inquired about the research I had conducted there, recalled specifics from earlier discussions, behaving for once like a typical sister. With graduate school applications imminent, junior year arrived. Emily offered to edit my personal statements. I agreed after hesitating. She offered insightful criticism without attempting to undermine anything, even found a few typos that I had overlooked. She assisted me in practicing for interviews. Helpful and constructive. She had changed over the years of therapy, not into an ideal person, but into someone who could work without hurting other people. She still had occasional jealousy issues. When I told her good news, I would see glimmers of the former Emily, but she would correct herself and apologize. Real change requires real work. She was truly thrilled for me when the acceptance letters began to come in. No fictitious mysterious illnesses or cancer diagnosis, just congrats and inquiries about the program I should enroll in. When the time came, she even offered to help me move. I was grateful for the offer, but I said we'd see. In preparation for the future, senior year went by quickly. Emily attended the graduation without drawing attention to herself. I sat with my parents and applauded when it was appropriate. She gave me a card with a sincere message expressing pride in my achievements and took pictures when requested. In fact, I thought she meant it. We spent more time together that summer than we had in years. She drove me to IKEA for furniture, assisted me in finding an apartment in my new city, and put together bookcases without complaining. At times, we even chuckled. No forced or premeditated laughter, just spontaneous responses to amusing situations. She asked if we could become real sisters someday, the night before I moved. Not right now, but later. I said perhaps, that I wanted to think it was possible, but I couldn't promise anything after enough time had passed and trust had been restored. That was fair, more than she truly deserved, she said. Together, we loaded the moving truck. My parents are trying to hide their emotions. Emily is helpful and realistic. She gave me a framed picture of us as children before everything went wrong as a small gift after everything had been packed. We both smiled at the camera. Sisters who had no idea what lay ahead. I hung in my new apartment, so it was visible but not overt. A reminder that forgiveness was achievable even if it took years. That people could change and that families could recover from severe trauma. I would look at the picture while studying because it was facing my desk. Two young girls who were not given what they deserved. These days, Emily and I text frequently, not every day, but consistently. She tells me about her classes and job. I tell graduate school stories. On the ashes of what was destroyed, we are constructing something new. Despite its imperfections and fragility, it belongs to us. Perhaps that's sufficient for now. I can see how far we've all come when I look back. Years of therapy, work, pain, and growth have followed that awful party where I took off her bald cap. My parents are getting better at seeing. Emily is learning how to live without causing destruction. I'm learning how to defend myself while remaining receptive to new possibilities. Our family isn't what it could have been. There's too much damage for that. However, we're the family that we have chosen to be. Healing but scarred, cautious but optimistic. The only thing anyone can do is to take things one day at a time.